I just wanted to remind everybody we do have some sponsors to thank. If you'd like to hang on a little longer, we'll get to some of these questions. The Siri Foundation, Sealaska Corporation, Hoonah Totem Corporation, Kiwanis Broadcast Corporation, the Alaska Humanities Forum, UAA's College of Business and Public Policy, and Native Student Services all contributed to getting everybody here and getting this organized, and thank you all for coming. But I wanted to quickly ask, since we're talking about it now, a question. Tell us about the understanding, awareness, and politics of customary and traditional use of the marine resources and why they were not recognized as part of claims. Sort of what you...
Actually, best I can recall, it just didn't come up.
Yeah.
It just didn't come up.
Right.
Because there was so much on our plate with the vitriolic divisions within our society over at least getting this settlement that we never raised our eyes above that. The issue that he's talking about of when I was a delegate to the United Nations, that came up after the land claims. And that came up after the first Inupiat conference, global conference, Circumpolar. And so it just never came up. But that's normal, because once you solve problems, society can now begin to address itself to other problems. But when when you got nothing, the first thing is to get a little. Yeah. And so we got a little. And we can't fault ourselves for not doing a better job. We did the best we could, and you're quite right. We got the best deal that was possible at that point in American history. Now, I won't say about what would happen today, because I'm very disgusted with what's happening today. But at least at that period, which was a high water mark, we did a great deal. And here again, let me state that it was the Native community coalescing. But one thing that I don't see a lot of Alaskans getting a feel for, the urban community was doing all right. When you brought up the rural community, it was like the tide rising. The prosperous people who were always doing all right did better, did a lot better. And so had we not gone to the justice issue of raising the economic level and the justice towards the rural areas of Alaska, you'd have never seen an improvement in the urban areas of Alaska. And that's one of the things that I hope that it comes out of this message, that there was something for all Alaskans in the settlement of the land claims.
How did the pipeline amendment come about? Did you or were you not the person who wrote the amendment to authorize the pipeline?
Well, this is an interesting story. Albeit, it happened like this. As you know, we were delayed in the courts. And Scoop Jackson had, and of course that delay occasioned about a $300 million study as to how to do it. And that was good. The delay was good, very good, because now they learned how to do it properly. But in its delay in court, the oil companies were obviously going to the chairman of the committee, which is Scoop Jackson. Well, most people weren't aware of Scoop Jackson was running for president. And so now you've got to understand, and I'm not saying this is a negative part to Jackson, because I had my problems with him, but I also had my respect for him. And so what he did is he told the oil companies that, well, don't you worry about a thing. We're going to take care of this pipeline issue in a conference committee. Okay? Now, to me, that was the stupidest possible thing that the oil companies, the executives, would believe that. Because here's what Scoop has got in his hand. On one side, he's got the environmental community that he needs, because this is where the power is to get elected president. And on the other side, he's got the oil companies, which were really not in good shape at that period of time. But in their arrogance, they thought you always go for the fix. Now, for those of you that aren't aware how a conference committee works, a bill passes the Senate, passes the House, there's a difference, and they come together in a conference, and they work it out. And when they work it out, whatever is worked out, it goes back to the chamber, and you can't vote, you can't amend it. All you can do is have an up and down vote. And so Jackson's promising that. They think with their lobbyists, they know what's going on. And of course, I'm looking at the issue and saying, hey, we're going to get screwed, because he's just putting an amendment up for the right-of-way. We want the authority of the court system put aside under NEPA, and the Congress is the ultimate authority in our society under the Constitution, and we make the decision that we think it's time to build the Alaska pipeline. Now, what happens? February of that year, 71. 73, I believe it was. Yeah, 73. I was about to take a foreign trip, and so my staff and I had worked up an amendment. And so I called Ted, and I said, Ted, look, this is what I think we ought to do. The hell with the committee. Let's just put the judiciary aside. Let's make the decision. So Ted says, fine. And I says, I'm leaving town. Would you look at it from a legal point of view, see if you like it, and then, lo and behold, dump it in the hopper? And he does. I go off on my trip. I come back. It's in a hopper. And I come back, and all of a sudden, Jackson accosts me and says, what the hell are you doing? Get rid of your amendment. I said, what are you talking about? I'm a senator, too, and I got one vote just like you got. And that amendment is staying in. But Stevens and Jackson, and this is an interesting, Democrat, they were very, very close. So Jackson went to Stevens and said, get your name off of that amendment or else. And Stevens took his name off. Now, many of you may, and this is, all you got to do is read the newspapers from February to July 17th, and you'll see what happened. I spent most of my time running back to Alaska to cover myself. I was being destroyed. Egan was opposed to it. The labor unions were opposed to it. Everybody on earth was opposed to it, because everybody said, well, Scoop Jackson, who brought statehood, he's going to take care of us. That's what was going on. And so and of course it was rumored that, well, this is Gravel's amendment. I never made a public speech on the floor of the Senate during that whole battle. I did everything behind the scenes. And it was this story needs to be. What happened? There was an aide, staff member of Scoop Jackson on the Atomic Energy Joint Committee, came to me and briefed me. This was 6 months before the oil problems with the Arabs. Briefed me on our dependency if the Arabs were to act. And he had an econometric model. And I'm looking at this, and I can't believe it. This is why we got to get going in Alaska. We got to save the country. And so, lo and behold, I make a deal with him. I said, don't tell Jackson that you me on this subject, but do me a personal favor. If you believe in what we both want to accomplish, whenever you go brief on a one-on-one with every single senator, give them the same briefing, scare the bejesus out of them. And so, but I got one favor to ask you. As soon as you get a senator that you've agreed to, you turn around and give me a call and tell me who you just briefed. Okay? I would go up to that senator, one-on-one, and I'll come back to what happened. Well, I'll segue into that. Ed Patton, I know time's running out, but this is a very important story. Ed Patton comes into my office with the lobbyist and said, we got to get you to pull back your amendment. Jackson's going to take care of us. And I said, hell, he's going to take care of you. You're too dumb to really see what's going on. And he says, well, but, we're important in Alaska. And I said, well, fine. I got elected by my Alaska constituency, and I'm going to exercise my independence as to what I think is best for Alaska. So they walk away, and Bill Foster was going down the hill. Gravel won't hurt us. Gravel won't hurt us. And then he came back, and I said, look, do me a favor. If I can show you 25 senators that will vote for the Alaska pipeline, will you join forces and help us? I went one-on-one to senators, and I would say to them, look, we got a lot of problems. I knew what they just heard. We got a lot of problems, and we got to save the country. We need the Alaska pipeline. And I'll tell you what I'll do. If you will vote for the Alaska pipeline, I will give you a vote as long as I'm in the Senate, And as long as it doesn't affect my moral turpitude, you can get any vote you want in the future. This is log rolling at its best. And so lo and behold, I got a list. It is about March, end of March. I got a list in my hand. I called in Foster, and I said, and the other guy, and I said, look at this list. They're going to vote for the pipeline. Go check them personally. They did. And I thought that now the oil companies are going to get involved helping me in the Senate. That's not what happened. What happened, the oil companies had the muscle. They went to Richard Nixon, the President of the United States, and said, boy, we think we could pull this off. Would you try this? So they took the concept of the amendment, and Rogers Morton made a speech in Baltimore, ran it up the flagpole, and then, of course, nobody caused a problem, and so Richard Nixon weighed in and used his power. The White House, full bore, went right in there and got the rest of the votes. And what happened was that Ted came to Alaska in 4th of July, and when he came back from Alaska, he was back on the amendment with me. And he was the one that made the speeches on the floor. I never made a speech on the floor of the Senate. And I thought we had about 7 votes to beat Scoop Jackson. And Jackson, it was not in his thinking that he would ever lose to a freshman. And so lo and behold, the debates among the attorneys over NEPA, I lost people like Bob Dole, who had pledged to me they would vote for the pipeline. Well, lo and behold, it got down to, as you recall, I got with Alan Cranston, my closest friend in the Senate, don't come for the vote, because I know you can't vote with us. And so what he did is, it's 20 minutes for a roll call, so he took 20 minutes, never got in, and the vote was tied, and not tied, and we went around to a maneuver, had another vote, and Ted Kennedy went out in the hall, grabbed Cranston by the scruff of the neck, brought him in, and then the vote was tied, and Spiro Agnew was in the chair and voted for it. But the other person, it was Melcher in the House, who was chairman of the committee, who put in the amendment, the same amendment, and that turned the oil companies and said, oh, we could even get it in the House. So we had the House, we had it going in the Senate, and that's what brought about the Alaska pipeline. Spiro Agnew, it broke the back, and it never came up again. From then on, it was clear sailing.
Did you want to add anything?
And to this day, in my heart of hearts, I thought we were just advancing the pipeline. Today, I sincerely believe, with the knowledge I have, because of ANILCA coming down the pike and the environmentalists getting ever so stronger in the nation, we'd have never got the Alaska pipeline had it not passed then. And had we not done that, then Alaska would be a very different community than it is today, and the natives would have not been able to prosper with their claims because their claims became valuable with the Alaska pipeline. That's my story, and I'll stick to it.
We have another question. Mayor Ita emphasized fairness in the land settlement process. In retrospect, was it fair to limit shareholders in the Native corporations to those Native people alive when the act went into effect?
No, it wasn't. And our corporation, Nordic Slope Regional Corporation, was the first corporation to allow non-ANCSA, our children, my wife and I's children, our grandchildren, are now enrolled directly into the corporation, regardless of that date. So we have. It was not right what happened. I mean, there was even the issue of blood quantum, that you had to have quarter blood. This was the standard that the Bureau of Indian Affairs used, i.e. the Department of Interior. Somehow we seem to have a knack as the Yupik Eskimos of getting the Department of Interior in our lap in some form. But
well, you can have
yeah, again, now we got offshore and Department of Interior. And it's amazing, the Center on the History, and just in closing, I want to say that, and again, it seems for whatever reason, that we and it's not by choice, seem to be involved in another national debate that reaches the level of the President of the United States to this day, and that's the offshore issue. And it's just starting, folks, so stay tuned. Thank you.
And I want you all to know that I have my Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs Certificate of Indian Blood.
Yeah.